being a Christian and African American is hard right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Cole Life. We actually plan to post a different video. We had a sit-down conversation with some very special people that we're going to post today. But because of recent events that we really want to talk about, we decided to push that towards next week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot has happened in America in the past week, and it's caused a lot of really tough conversations amongst our peers and different people groups across the world even, that we don't address every single topic. We don't address every single current event every time something changes, but we felt the gravity of this situation was absolutely warranting our response so that you, our audience, can know how we feel about it, where we stand on issues like this, but also just to share the hurt and the pain that people are going through so that we can all be aware of that when we deal with our friends, family, and coworkers even.
And that's all of our platforms. I feel like sometimes we may talk about things on Instagram, talk about things on TikTok, but we want to make sure that we hit all platforms when it comes to stuff like this because we care. We want our community to know that we care about how you feel and just know that we're praying for you guys and we're just believing that, we'll get through each current event that comes our way. So
before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We have some serious moments. We have a lot of fun moments.
Yes.
So come along the ride for all of it.
All right, let's get into it. Going into 2020, we knew that there was going to be some aftermath, some aftershock of all this, the discrimination from all of the social injustice that was going on. And we knew that. I mean, sad that it happened so early, but it wasn't necessarily surprising that something happened, but it was quite a shock on what exactly happened.
The other day I was working, I was in meetings in our spare bedroom, and my meetings were over and I was just sending some emails. Lexi comes in and was like, "Have you heard what's going on right now?"
I could not wait to tell him what was going on at the Capitol.
I'm like, what are you talking about? What's going on? Like, what happened? Is everyone okay? Like, I'm thinking something was wrong with family or something. And she's like, no, they stormed the Capitol. And I'm like, what is she talking about? The Hunger Games? Like, what is she saying? And I didn't even register. It didn't even register what she was saying. And she broke it down. She's like, no, there was a Trump support group that literally raided and sieged the Capitol building. And it was like, I couldn't even put the two pieces together and it wasn't clicking until I finally was like, you're kidding me. And I started looking online and saw it all over the news. And it was just this moment of like dumbfoundedness.
Yeah. And I didn't know what was worse. The fact that they did all of these crazy things, that they seized the Capitol, or how they actually seized the Capitol. They just walked in. Like they just walked in, there was no fight.
Well, they had to climb the walls first, of course, because that's...
And why would they climb the walls when they could just walk in? It was crazy. And to see that there were police officers they just decided to let them in, seeing police officers take selfies with them, like that, I think that was worse for me.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, they were taking pictures.
Wow.
You know that there's a discrepancy. You know that there's a difference, but I feel like it's being drilled into us constantly that we are different, that African Americans are different than European Americans. That is how we, that's the name that we give our cultures. Everybody has a name that's different, but I do feel like we're just being hit so hard saying we are not the same. We don't belong here. We aren't accepted here. We aren't protected here. There's so much that is mentally that we are fighting with mentally because of all the things that have happened in 2020. I mean, just years. It's not even just 2020. It's been years of this, but 2020 and now this is just like, it hits deep. It hits deep.
I'm not African American, but what hurts the most for me is to see the blatant discrepancy between the responses. So when I was online researching this event, as soon as I saw what happened, as soon as I saw the images of people scaling the Capitol walls, I immediately started looking for what was the response from law enforcement. And she already alluded to it, but the response was so minimal. and barely what we could even call a response until later on, maybe. But initially, even in the midst of it, the response was so absent that you look at what happened earlier in 2020 when there was peaceful Black Lives Matter protests. Peaceful Black Lives Matter protests. The response from law enforcement was so strong that sometimes it was the officers who incited the violence. Sometimes it was the officers and their presence and everything that they came with and what they were doing that was being abusive and creating violence and causing even a response.
It was what, the National Guard? Weren't they there?
I think they were there. I don't want to say because I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But, and granted, we know that there were also violent acts and riots from a number of people, and we're not necessarily condoning any of that. However, when we just talk about the peaceful side of things, it blows my mind that those rallies were met with force and violence.
Yeah.
But what we can only describe and define as domestic terrorism, people let them walk in. People barely oppose them. And what's so interesting to me is that we are hearing silence from a lot of different groups right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different groups that just aren't talking right now that were very vocal when George Floyd died and very vocal when African Americans rose up in protest to the injustices happening.
But it's making us question who we can trust. What do they really believe? I mean, to see people that other people I've seen every day, and they were like, they just seem like a regular person. They had no problems. Real nice guy. Love them. And to find out that they would be a part of such a tragedy, such a traumatic experience for African Americans, that this experience is going to be remembered for years. And it is affecting us. It's affecting me.
Yeah. U.S. citizens in protest of democracy and what they thought was unfair or unjust, without clear evidence of it, have stormed the Capitol to protest the new president coming in.
Yeah.
I can't understand that's like grounds for civil war. Right. And potential for that. Like, it's such a dangerous thing. I would expect the National Guard to show up. I would expect police to be out there in droves, in the thousands, to make sure that they quell that uprising and whatever you want to call it. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I think for me, even when you look at the Blue Lives Matter protest movement, you know, to be police officers, pro cops.
Yeah.
You know, again, we're not anti-cops, but there's clearly a problem with a number of cops. But even the Blue Lives Matter movement is very silent right now.
Yeah.
A cop was killed.
Yes.
A cop was killed.
And it makes you wonder, what was the point? Because if you're going to be the same and you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement and saying Blue Lives Matter, it should be the same right now.
The same across the board. You should be just as angry as you were when a black person hurt a police officer. And this is where I get frustrated. Like, if you're going to be the same, be the same. Don't try to change up how you feel because now it's affecting your thinking or it's affecting what you believe. Maybe you were really just a Trump supporter that's trying to say Blue Lives Matter and you didn't really believe it, but don't do that. Just be honest of where you stand. And that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing, and this is what bothers me, is that there's no consistency, which means that all the talk was for nothing, which makes me think that the reason why you're only talking is because you just don't like black people. You don't really want us to win. You don't really believe that we're supposed to be equal. That's the difference. When you look at President Trump's words, when he was speaking against peaceful protesters, he called them thugs.
Yeah.
Peaceful African-American protesters were labeled as thugs, right? But yet, if you look at the words he chose in his speech against this group, he said they're good people.
Yeah.
I love you guys. Good people. We love you. Go home. Be peaceful. But they were good people.
There's people that had nooses, holding nooses walking into the Capitol. There are people that had like extremely provocative shirts. I mean,
it was white privilege on its greatest display. I do have to ask you this one thing. Please take a moment and think through, what would your response have been to this event if you saw an army of African American who had assault rifles and guns, scaling the walls of the Capitol, infiltrating the Capitol building, and doing the damage to the Capitol that was done, and killing a police officer in the process, what would you have thought about it then?
Yeah.
Is there a difference with how you feel about that with how you feel about what happened?
Be honest.
And if there is, therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem. That there is a difference with how some people think because of what the person looks like who's doing the violence and the damage. Clear difference.
I don't feel protected. I don't feel safe. Like it just makes you think as you walk around, you live life, you wonder, who am I really around? Who am I around?
And it's not that we are not saying that every officer is racist. We're not saying that all the cops are bad by any means.
Yeah.
We know great people who are police officers, but as a collective, there is an issue.
Good.
There's an issue when the collective response is different among people groups. You can't deny that at this point.
Yeah.
It is too evident and it is too obvious. And that causes a lot of pain, a lot of emotional trauma right now, and a lot of hurt and a lot of feelings of scared and insecurity.
Being a Christian and African American is hard right now. Brian, after we took our time and we discussed what was going on that day, I just asked Brian to pray, and he, prayed for us. He prayed for just our country. And I know that God is doing something because there's a lot of shaking and moving. There's a lot of stuff that is causing issues. So to maybe get to what God is trying to do, it's going to take a lot of pushback. But my personal prayer that I prayed after Brian prayed was just God would really just touch my heart on forgiveness. Mm-hmm. It is really hard to forgive everything that's happening right now. It's bigger than saying that, oh, well, Trump is just a man and, understanding who he is and letting things go. It's bigger than that. But I know that the only strength I have to keep going is the strength of God. Like God is just giving me so much strength, and not just for the people that are ignorant, but also for the people that call themselves Christians and say that what happened at the Capitol was okay. I'm praying for myself that I am constantly have the heart to forgive people for what they have done, and to make me feel like I am less than them. And my prayer is that for you, that we are mending each other's hearts during this time. It is not easy. It is difficult to be in America right now, and being Black, African American, or just people of color. It is hard. Very hard. I'm just praying for you all. I'm praying for myself. I'm praying for our protection with our family, because I don't feel safe.
Just because God is a good God and God is a loving God does not mean there is not a lot of evil in this world. Yeah. And there's a lot of evil in this world. And our prayer has been that we stay in God's shadow. Yeah. We stay under the cloud. We stay in His will throughout all this. The most peaceful place that we can be in is under His will. And if we stay there, right, wrong, or indifferent, bad, whatever may happen to us, we know that we are in His will. And that would give us peace.
And I have to believe that, Romans 8:28, like all things work together for our good. Like He has to make this work together for my good. And I'm believing in that. That is my hope. Is that this is not the end, that God does see this. He sees what's going on. And I have hope that there is change.
And I would just ask for anyone that was very vocal on either side, that was very vocal when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, when African Americans were upset about what's going on. I'm just asking you to be introspective. Look at how you responded to that on both sides, African American, European American. Look at how you responded to that instance or that issue, and ask yourself if you're responding with that same tenacity to this. Are you as upset? Are you as raised up in arms about the issue that we're seeing and the effect that it's had on our country? And if you're not, just ask you to be introspective and look at why.
Just want to give everybody a hug if we can. I need one.
You hear Aza in the background. She'll give us hugs.
Yeah. We give each other hugs.
I love you.
I love you too. But we just want to let you guys know we feel you right now, and we're praying for you guys, and we love you. And let's just give each other time to breathe and just be. It's okay if you need to take some time. But
And it'd be great if you could pray for us too.
yeah. But we will talk to you next week. It'll be a lot lighter.
Next week will be a really fun video.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk to you later.